All right, welcome scholars. Welcome back to Talkin' Fahrenheit 451. As we go through these notes, I recommend you take some notes of your own, and then once we're done here, complete the quick write for week 4, which is worth 5 points in the speaking and listening category. I also recommend that you do the review or the guided review on the second to last slide, but that is not required, though highly recommended. Here we go. The sieve in the sand, some important plot events. In part 2, when the scene opens, we see Montag and Mildred doing some reading and having some discussions where leads Montag to ask Mildred the question, Millie, does the white clown love you? He storms off, and then we see Montag reading on the subway, where he is distracted by those around him, starting to look a little bit like a man who's losing it. He's disrupted by the ad that's being played over the radio for Denham's dentifrice. Finally, though, he makes it to Faber, who is kind of going to be his mentor type of character. And they make a plan. You should know what Faber says and what the plan that they make. What is that plan? I'll tell you, it does involve a little earpiece that Montag will wear so that Faber can speak to him. Just a side note, but Bradbury, very accurate on some of the technological details as we go through. After the visit to Faber, we get the famous scene of Montag back at the house. All of Mildred's friends have come over to watch her parlor walls together. And Montag does a pretty good job freaking them out. How does he do it? What are their reactions? Should he have expected those reactions? So on and so forth. Then Montag returns to the firehouse where we get Beatty making a famous speech. If you were a little confused in that part, I get it. But what Beatty is doing, amongst many other things, is he is quoting different pieces of famous literature. He'll quote one line, then he'll quote another to show that those two lines argue with one another and how how many conflicting ideas are in books, how confusing it can be, and why that might lead to sadness. He's trying to show Montag that those books, those ideas that Montag is seeking after are a bunch of nonsense. And then finally, exciting cliffhanger ending in part 2. And that covers most of the main events, although you still need to read it. Sip of coffee. So let's talk a few key ideas, themes, or characters from part 2. 1, the title is important. Here we've got a sieve. As you can see, it has holes in it. In the other picture, we've got sand. You can envision what might happen if you tried to fill that sieve with sand. It's not going to go too good. And it's important because in part 2, Montag tells a childhood story about a trip to the beach with his cousin and trying to fill a sieve with sand. This story parallels his urgent reading of the Bible while he's on the subway. This is his attempt at memorization. But Montag struggles. He is not familiar with reading. He's not a strong reader. He can't get the info to stick. It just passes through his brain, just like sand passing through a sieve. And just a thought question, but do you sometimes have that same feeling when you're reading? I know if I'm not focused or if I'm tired or if I've got other distractions going on, that happens to me as well. So important title in this part. Boom, let's do that. So another important idea from this part and from the novel is this idea of sensory congestion. The idea that our senses are being barraged by noises and sounds and visuals so much that it makes it hard for us to focus. Bradbury believed that the constant barrage of advertisements, when we're driving down the road, we've got billboards. When we're watching TV, ads every moment, podcasts, ads. He believed that this constant barrage of advertisements, distraction, prevents people from concentrating and prevents people from thinking differently. So go back and reread that scene with Montag on the subway. Faber also criticizes TV and Bradbury had a lot of concerns about this new medium of entertainment, TV. He thought that even though it's more real than books, it can be more invasive and controlling. With a book, you get to decide your pace of entertainment. And if you come across something interesting or controversial, you can put that book down. Whereas TV, movies, etc., you hit play and it reaches in and grabs your brain, and there's no stop until the end. Quick side note, I will say Bradbury failed to anticipate the pause button of video recording. But the idea remains the same, is that with all this fast-paced and all this fast-paced entertainment that is available, are we thinking deeply? Are we learning? Are we taking time to sit with our own emotions and to emotionally mature? All important questions, like the seashells in the book or our AirPods or instant gratification. We can pull out our phones and look at Instagram or TikTok or whatever anytime. Does that prevent us from thinking deeply and from sitting and accessing and letting our emotions mature? I don't know. What do you think? Important character, Faber. I'll try and go a little bit more important. Faber's trying to help Montag realize why he's unhappy. And he says, hey, Montag, it's not the books that you are missing. It is the ideas in those books, the textured information, the different viewpoints, the thoughtfulness of those books. Faber compares the society of Fahrenheit 451 to flowers trying to live on flowers. We know that flowers can't live on flowers alone. They need dirt. They need the dirty, gritty stuff. And yeah, in the society of Fahrenheit 451, they're pretending as if there's no ugly part to life, as though we don't need to work hard to buy that new car or to better ourselves. They're just trying to go for the entertainment. If they were in our world, they'd just be sitting on their phones 24 hours a day or minus sleeping. So, thought question for you, and this is just something to think about. How does this unwillingness to accept or see basic or unpleasant realities of life, how does that compare to our society? Do we do the same thing? Do we ignore the ugly parts on the news sometimes? Do we ignore the food that we buy and how it's made? Do we ignore how our clothing is made? Important questions to think about. So, this is the review that I was saying. I think that you should probably go over the whole thing. Make sure you know about the title, why it's important, about sensory overload, about Faber. You should know the details of the conversation that Montag has with the ladies, the speech at the firehouse, and the general plot. It shouldn't take you too long. And then finally, the symbolism, this writing prompt here is exactly what you will see on the quick write. So you need to go into the quick write now, open that up, 5 to 10 minutes writing on the prompt, which asks you about the title of part 1. We've talked about the title of part 2. Go back, review part 1, and see if it has any more deep significance for you now. I hope this was a helpful review, young scholars. I hope that you are healthy, happy, enjoying the novel. Don't forget about Zoom office hours Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you soon.